opening kick. Mike Elko saying wide receiver Micah Hudson is no longer part of the Texas A&M program. The class of 2024 five-star transferred to A&M from Texas Tech in December. Our Matt Zenitz made an appearance on the 24/7 Sports College Football Show on January 17th when Hudson initially stepped away from the program.
Extremely up in the air right now. So it's a hard situation to get a read on, and it's not just a foregone conclusion that Micah is going to be back, that there's hope at A&M that will ultimately be the case, and they are definitely saving a spot for him if he chooses to return. But for right now, he's chosen to step away, and that there's a level of unknown of just timetable on when he'll be back or if he will be back with A&M.
All right, so that was our Matt Zenitz back in January, which means that this didn't come as a complete shock necessarily, but now that it has come to a head and that Micah Hudson is no longer with the Texas A&M program, we want to bring on another college football insider. Our friend Chris Hummer is here for a little bit more perspective from the Longhorn State. Chris, how did we get to this day where Micah Hudson is no longer part of the Aggies program?
Well, Micah Hudson was only a part of the Aggies program for a very short time. He left the team in January, shortly after enrolling. He was dealing with some personal issues back home that I think the Texas A&M staff was okay with him stepping away to take care of, potentially. But he never, as far as my understanding goes, he never returned to campus. He has not been back to campus since leaving, and I think that just kind of put him in a position where he's not expected back at Texas A&M going into the future. And it's an interesting development for a player who just a year ago was one of the highest ranked recruits in the country and was viewed the future of Texas Tech's wide receiver room. Now he'll be going potentially to his third team in essentially 12 months when the spring portal window opens up.
Yeah, and that's where the personnel department has to come into play, because you have to, at some point, remove what the player is on the field and get the off-the-field information on that player before you make that decision and invest, because I know he didn't come cheap. Because now you have dead money because you have a player that's moved on. Your offensive coordinator's planning for this player to be on the field, and now there's not enough research or information on why we can't keep him on the field, keep him in our university for more than 3 months. Couldn't even get him to spring ball.
Yeah, I said it's not necessarily a surprise that it came to this place in his story, but we still are wondering what happened here necessarily. But Chris, you said that he could potentially be on his third team in 12 months. So does that mean no reunion again with Texas Tech, or what do you expect to be next for Micah Hudson?
A reunion's possible. I mean, some rumors with Texas Tech have been floating behind the scenes for a little bit with Micah Hudson over the last month, but I don't think there's anything concrete or anything close to that at the moment with Micah Hudson, who hasn't really been in communication, it sounds like, with many schools at the moment. I think Micah Hudson is just trying to figure out like his family stuff right now. So I would imagine he'll enter the portal in the spring. Texas A&M's not expecting him back, and it'll be an interesting market for him. He did not. There were a lot of bad rumors floating around about Micah Hudson's NIL deal with Texas A&M a couple months ago. I think it was like $800,000 in a car. His NIL deal with Texas A&M was nowhere close to that number. And he actually took a pretty team-friendly deal at Texas Tech the first time too. So I don't think this is like necessarily a money thing for Micah Hudson. It's just a fit thing. And given that he's now on his third school in 12 months, as I said, it'll be very interesting to see how schools evaluate him in the portal, because you're going to have to weigh talent, of which there's plenty, versus some of the disruptions that have happened with Micah Hudson over the last 6 months in terms of being on rosters and staying on rosters. So it'll be interesting. I don't think he'll be expensive, but schools are going to have to weigh everything that goes with Micah Hudson at the moment.
Chris, if he ends up back at Texas Tech, that's nasty work. That's dirty work on both sides of it, because you're looking at it and saying, okay, you left when the A&M couldn't survive but for a couple of days and a cup of coffee and maybe some tea and some Gatorade, and you're going back to the team that you left. So when you leave and you come back, and if I'm a school that's looking at getting a wide receiver, I'm not touching this. This makes me scared. Like red flags all over the place, because nothing's been said that happened on campus. Everything is of he didn't feel comfortable in a new place to go in and survive. And everywhere that you go from this point on is going to be uncharted waters. So in the NFL, are you going to feel comfortable enough to adapt to a new surrounding, new area, new culture? Or are you going to want to pick your stuff up and run again? So that's what makes me scared about this prospect. Forget what it is on the field. And what we haven't seen anything really from him on the college level. We've seen high school. So does the production match the tolerance and the behavior of the athlete? I'm going to say no. So I'm going to just say I'll walk away until further notice, until you show me who you are, that I can invest something in you. Because there's a lot of dead money that's going around. I know we're saying team friendly, 500,000, 800,000 car. That's not team friendly when you're talking about you haven't given me anything in terms of production. Allegedly.
Yeah, Chris said that.
Quick things. One, neither one of his NIL deals were close to either one of those numbers. The second thing is, like, in all fairness to Micah Hudson, my understanding is, like, one of the things that he was dealing with off the field was a family health issue. And when you're 18 and away from home, like, everybody handles that in different ways and kind of has to deal with that in different ways. I'm not saying everything's been handled perfectly, and honestly, I'd be lying if I knew every single detail of what transpired the last 4 months at Texas A&M. But there's a reason why A&M was holding a spot for him for at least a little while for him to come back to the program. They believed in the talent. And I think schools are just going to have to weigh all of that and all the other factors that go into it and do their research. Because this is somebody that, like, I know the people at Texas Tech have a lot of respect for. I think they were frustrated with the way it ended there and him entering the portal after what was really a injury-riddled season for him that never got going. And now you have this situation. But I don't think it's exactly cut and dry that, like, he was having, like, personal issues that, like, pushed himself out the door. I think there are a lot of things going on with him.
He was the highest ranked recruit in Texas Tech history, so they were certainly excited to land him. But like you said, that one freshman season didn't get to see a whole lot because of those injuries. So as we await the fate of Micah Hudson and what's next for him, it sounds like we'll have to wait until this spring transfer portal window. How about what he's leaving behind at Texas A&M? Chris, as we look ahead to 2025 for this Aggies program, where does this leave their wide receiver room?
Well, it'll be interesting. Texas A&M, if you would have asked anybody like 3 months ago, had the #1 receiver class in the country with their portal ads. They had Micah Hudson, Mario Craver, and they also brought in another top receiver from the portal as part of that group that was really hoping to make an impact. But part of the problem is, like, Mike Hudson's gone. Mario Craver was arrested recently, I believe, or detained on campus. I don't think he's going to leave the program or anything like that. I expect him to be part of it next year, but it is looking a little unstable next to Terry Bussey as well, who is coming back. So there's a lot of talent in that room, but there's also a lot for them to sort out with Marcel Reed being QB1. And Marcel Reed, a guy who has a ton of talent, but didn't necessarily show it at all times last year and struggled as a passer for stretches. So they need that receiver group to elevate, and it remains to be seen going into spring, like, what that unit's going to fully look like heading into 2025.
Chris, you touched on the guy that I've been talking about all this time. It's Terry Bussey, and it's time for that young guy to step up and play. And with opportunity, with the explosiveness and athletic ability, I think this is his time. I mean, it's college football. This is what we recruit guys for opportunities like this. Get him the ball, and let's figure out if we made the right decision with a guy coming out of high school.
Yeah, still plenty of talent in that wide receiver room. Go ahead, Chris.
No, I was going to say, and the guy, name was not coming to the tip of the tongue, was Casey Concepcion.
Yeah.
Their big addition from NC State. And Casey and Terry Bussey as a combination is something a lot of teams would really hope to have. Like, that's a pretty good one, too. So it's not like Texas A&M is out of options at receiver, but it would really help their depth if other players like Jonah Wilson, another transfer that came in from Houston, could step up behind them, because Marcel Reed and that A&M offense, based on what we saw last year, need as much of a jump start as they can get from that passing game.
Yeah, definitely a loss losing Micah Hudson, but as we've laid out, Texas A&M's wide receiver room seems to be doing quite all right, and we'll have some success this season. We'll continue to track the news with Hudson. I'm sure that Chris Hemmer will be all over it. Thank you so much for joining us here.